We're looking at the basic graphs of sine and cosine, the amplitude, reflection, and period. If you notice in the first picture here that this graph repeats itself. It's called a periodic function. Sine normally starts at 0. Zero, zero here. And a full period is 2 pi. So what we want to know about sine is to complete the picture of the sine, the period is 2 pi. Cosine starts at 0, 1. And the same thing, it completes its cycle in a period of 2 pi. So there are some important terms that we want to know. The amplitude, that's how high, either above or below, the x-axis is. And the x-axis can shift, but it's the same distance above and below, is 1 unit. Okay, the period is 2 pi over b. Notice b is a multiplier by the letter x. And then b is 2 pi over the period. So let's look at how to graph some of this. First of all, we want to identify the amplitude and the period do not graph. So on number 1, the amplitude is actually the absolute value of 3.7. So if these numbers are positive, that first number there will be the amplitude. So your amplitude is 3.7. The b value, so b is equal to 2. The period of sine is 2 pi. So the period is always 2 pi divided by b. So in this case, for this given equation, 2 pi divided by 2 is pi. So the period is pi. On 2, notice it's negative. That means it will reflect over the x-axis. Therefore, the amplitude is the absolute value of negative 6, which is positive 6. Notice amplitude is always positive. The b value is pi over 5. So the period is 2 pi divided by pi over 5. So to do our math, we'll do 2 pi times 5 over pi, which is 10. So in this case, our period is 10, whatever the units are. Now, we would like to graph one cycle of each graph. So the amplitude is 3. B is 2. So the period that for the graph we will graph is 2 pi divided by 2, which is pi. Now, I've introduced the idea of a count to my class because you have 4 major points. Our count is the period times 1/4, or the period divided by 4. So in this case, our count is pi over 4. All right, we will start at 0, 0 because we do not have any transformations. That'll come in the next video. So what that means is this. This is pi over 4. I'm going to count by pi over 4. 2 pi over 4. I know that simplifies to pi over 2. 3 pi over 4. And 4 pi over 4, which is pi. Now, the amplitude is 3. Sine starts at 0. So by getting my count here, the value of the amplitude will be at pi over 4. Goes back to 0. Then negative pi over 4. But it goes at 3 pi over 4, it goes to the negative amplitude value and back to 0. So I can complete one cycle of my graph. Now here, my amplitude is the absolute value of negative 2, which is 2. My period is 2 pi divided by b, or 2 pi times reciprocal 4 over pi, which is 8. So my count is going to be 8 times 1/4, which is 2. So what that means, let's do this in a different color here. When we go to graph this, okay, we will count by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8. Your amplitude is 2, but it'll be negative. Okay. Cosine should start at 1 when it's at 0. But because it's negative, it goes -2, then to 0, then the amplitude 2, back to 0, and back to -2 because we flipped it over the x-axis. So that would be a picture of one period for this graph. So there are great basic graphs and pictures. So in the next video, we will look at transformations, vertical shifts, and horizontal shifts. Have a great day.